Y'all ready to be history?
Get started.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
To the Pro Audio Suite.
These guys are professional. They're motivated.
Thanks to TriBooth, the best vocal booth for home or on-the-road voice recording. And Austrian Audio, making passion heard. Introducing Robert Marshall from Source Elements and Someone Audio Post, Chicago. Darren Robbo Robertson from Voodoo Radio Imaging, Sydney. Tech to the VO Stars, George the Tech Whittam from LA. And me, Andrew Peters, voiceover talent and home studio guy.
Line up, learner!
Here we go.
And welcome to another Pro Audio Suite, thanks to TriBooth. Don't forget the code PAP200 to get $200 off your purchase, and Austrian Audio, making passion heard. Now, speaking of microphones, we have a question that was sent to Robbo.
Yeah, just a tad for a question from Tad Davis. I'm using a Rode NT1, nice mic. I'm testing a Rode NTG 5 as a replacement. My single purpose is narrating audiobooks. Obviously, you don't know anything about my specific voice, but in general, is this a recommended use for this mic?
Well, we know both those mics very well.
I think it depends on what your purpose is. Like what is it that you're trying to fix and that you don't like about one or the other? I'd guess the NTG 5 is going to be a little bit bigger and warmer sounding, more low compared to the NT1. And the NT1 might sound a little bit more natural or whatever,
Well, you remember when we did the mic shootout, though, and the NT1 came up and sounded like
416.
a 41.6.
It did, didn't
it's
it?
like,
which means
how
it's
the
probably
hell did that
got
happen?
more bright and cut to it than the NTG 5, which I always get the impression it's got a bigger lower end. It does have all the advantages of a shotgun. It's going to reject noise better and sound a little bit more focused. But
is
both
it
nice
cheating
mics.
if I've been to his house?
you have inside knowledge.
You got some inside information?
Yeah. Okay.
Go, George.
All right. So, because what I'm thinking is it depends on the environment, whichever one I would pick. If the environment's not perfect, then the NTG 5 or any shotgun would be the way to go. But you also don't want 41.6 really because it's harsh.
Snarly.
And for an
Not
audio
a
book, it'd
long
be like, ooh.
listener. No, it's not a narration microphone.
No.
I wouldn't think.
But I would think the OC818 would be the one to use.
Yeah.
Very
Or
kind of
even-
flattering and smooth sounding and probably great for
And more shapeable pickup pattern
Yeah.
to deal with
Yeah.
less than ideal.
And so for something that's like a long time, like an audiobook where there's going to be some level of fatigue, that's a much cushier, soft blanket.
I wonder
kinda.
why he's replacing the NT1 because it's a pretty good choice for what he's doing, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine the NT1's a
it-
little bit sharp, like a little bit.
Yeah. But still, it's not terrible.
Irritating.
He's in an untreated room. He's in an acoustically treated space, but he's in a non-soundproofed urban environment.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's challenging, right? So he's trying to find any way he can to kind of focus in
it a
on the
bit more.
voice.
Yeah.
So the shotgun,
Yeah, I would venture to guess he'd get better results right off the NTG 5 than the NT1 because of that. But, he would definitely want to compare them and listen to them back to back and see which one responds best to his situation and his voice. But that's what shotgun mics are really all about, is to try to reject more off-axis noise. That's why you use one. You don't use one to work around bad acoustics. That's the misnomer.
Yeah.
Shotgun mics do not fix bad acoustics. They can actually exacerbate it.
Depending on what
make
you
it
pointed
worse.
at, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but it can minimize reflections from walls that you want to avoid. If you're not able to deal with them, it's not going to get rid of them. You're right, but you can make it a little bit less. Like a wide cardioid mic. If you got your mic right next to a window, is more likely to pick up that reflection than a shotgun, unless you point the back of the shotgun at the window.
Like a boom operator on an interior set with like a low ceiling is going to use a hypercardioid or cardioid mic. They're not going to use a shotgun
because of the lobe.
There's a lobe and they'll get this slap off the ceiling, and so it does depend on the scenario. But if you're using it very close placement, like I would imagine he would be, it would do a pretty fine job of rejecting more ambient background noise. So I think it could be helpful.
If anybody cares, this is a NTG 5 in a not even thought about acoustic environment if you can't tell already. I mean, literally, it's just a bedroom with, plaster walls and windows and hardwood floor and me. I'm
on an OC818 standing at my desk in my office. That's not soundproof.
Well, that's interesting because that's the result you're getting from an OC818. And what pattern have you got? Is it just cardioid or hypercardioid?
I am using hypercardioid.
Yeah.
You're not quite a shotgun. There is a little, there's the beginning of the node with the hyper and the supercardioids,
Right. There's a little bump in the back.
You start to see the node grow,
Yeah.
Because what's happening is it starts to become more figure eight. Like you think about what mic actually has the best side rejection. And I'd say it's specifically a figure eight done by a ribbon mic, even better than even a figure eight done by a dual diaphragm. Because when it's done by a dual diaphragm, those diaphragms are not physically in the exact same place. They are a few millimeters away from each other. And amazingly, that can affect some of the cancellation on some frequencies. But a ribbon mic, it's like the trick that the Beatles used when they would sing vocals and they didn't wear headphones, and they would send the cue in directly from the side of the microphone.
And they have a small speaker pointing right at the side of the mic.
90 degrees to the mic and no headphones, and it's basically almost
and then
entirely
a dead
gone.
Room.
Yeah.
It has to be a dead room too. You can't do that in a lively room. It has to be pretty dead.
Right.
Yeah.
It'll bounce off and diffuse and then become something present in the front of the diaphragm instead of the side. But
I think figure eight is very, very underrated in terms of being an extremely good fix for bad situations.
I used to love to use it.
Yeah.
I used to love to use it because it has, more than the shotguns even, it has great proximity effect. If you want to
amazing
make something big
incredible.
Sound, it's like figure eight can add whatever size.
My favorite thing is a U87 in figure eight. If you have to use it in a small booth, like if you're in a studio brick or something where the walls are like less than 3 feet apart, and the mic's right in the center.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
It's a brutal situation acoustically, especially with a glass door. But you put it in figure eight, and it forgets about the glass door. It doesn't notice it. It's a completely different animal. Like it's an incredible result. It just is.
Well, I used to
unfortunately,
this is one of the things
darker.
about the subtle
that's
arts.
That's exactly right.
It's the subtle art of mic placement and using, just like a photographer is adjusting their lenses to get that right shot. This is the advantage of having a multi-pattern microphone, and especially one that's like the U87 is 3 patterns. But what's the OC818? You got like 5, I think. What is it? You got cardioid, wide cardioid.
Well, you got
omni figure eight and super
custom
cardioid or.
On the OC818, you have a
right, and then you can
position.
play with them.
Yeah,
right. You can do the software, and you can actually control the polar pattern by frequency range with the polar pattern designer software, which we haven't even dug into yet. But that's
no, not really.
Thing.
Andrew and I did a quickie. We did a little thing remotely, and we did play with it, didn't we?
Yeah, we did the video. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, if you've got someone like George and you've got not a great space, then the OC818 could be, obviously it's a lot more expensive than a NTG 5, but it could be
a really good option.
Yeah. But it could be half the pain.
Yeah. We did set up acoustical baffles. So he has a work desk, like a desk. He sits and he's reading audiobooks, and he's got nicely baffled areas because we have a bunch of ATS acoustics Rockwool panels positioned all around the desk. So he's got a great dead recording zone. So his battle is really dealing with the ambient background noise.
Okay.
And a mic and a shotgun mic even can only do so much. You're going to be leaning on processing at some point, and that's just the way it's going to go. It's not a soundproof space.
Mm-hmm. Not that there is really any space that's soundproof, particularly unless you're going to spend $1 million on decoupling the whole building.
How soundproof does a space need to be, or how quiet does a space need to be? Right, that's a quantifiable, or that's something that's difficult to quantify, because we throw around numbers. Well, you should have a noise floor of below minus 60 dB RMS.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot because it depends on the frequency range of said noises.
Yeah.
Are they like right smack in the middle of your voice range? Is it a lawnmower?
Some
Is
people
it a
talk
helicopter?
about noises being good because some, like, what's dither? And if you add the right amount of consistent noise, the noise isn't noticed. It's like a dinosaur. What does the dinosaur? They saw motion. So if the noise is changing, it's going to call attention to itself. You can have a little bit of hiss sometimes, and it's not going to cause an issue at all.
Yeah, white noise is pretty good, but not all even hisses are the same.
Correct.
Some have much more broadband content. Some have more high frequency content. It's just you know it when you hear it, and the meters will lie. The meter will say minus 68 dB RMS. And then you'll listen to it and you'll be like, man, that hiss.
Yeah,
loud.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Right. And then you'll check another thing and it'll be like RMS minus 45. And you're like, oof. And then you find out, oh, it's all rumble. It's just low frequency crud. And I can just high pass it and it's gone.
It's gone all of a sudden, right? Now all of a sudden that line
now
goes like
I'm down-
completely flat.
Yeah, I can go from minus 45 dB RMS to minus 65 with just a high pass, period, like instantly. So it just depends on the content of the noise too. Yeah. So it's there's a lot of factors, but hearing is believing. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
You got to listen to them and use your ears.
Yep. And also allow for the fact that your brain is actually quite lazy.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me one more thing. A 416 or a shotgun mic like the NTG5 is going to respond differently to proximity effect too, right? So we talked about that a bit, but if you're very accustomed to working a cardioid NT1 and you go to a shotgun, it's not going to behave the same way. So you have to keep that in mind too. You can't work it exactly the same way. You can't move around physically the same way. So there's a definite technique difference that will come along with using a shotgun, a super cardioid.
And I think if you're going to do long form audiobooks, you need to be able to move around because, you're telling a story. It's not like a 30-second spot.
Right. That said, I know an audiobook production house here in Los Angeles, and I've been to the studio and I saw 41.6s in the booths, and I scratched my head and I was like, really?
Yeah, and like a 41.6 is more like you want it to cut through, and you're willing to be just a little bit annoying, and you want that cut. It's not a. I think for a long-term audiobook, I would not pick a 416 if there wasn't some other problem I was trying to solve with a shotgun at least.
Right.
So this studio, out of interest, George, is it a large commercial studio?
Well, it's an audiobook production house, so it's large by their standards, but it would not be considered a serious commercial studio. Probably.
Oh, right. Okay. I was just thinking.
Yeah.
I thought I knew where it was, but no.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Well, I don't know if we answered the question. I'm not sure.
There's no
As
answer.
usual. Was there a question?
Actually. Yeah.
There's no one answer. There's the try and see. There's the listen to the mic. There's the use it for a while and see how it fits for your voice and your acting style. There's a lot loaded. It's a loaded question. Let's just put it that way. It's a loaded question.
But I think if you needed to have a shotgun for whatever reason, if that was because of the acoustic issues that the sound issues you're having, then the NTG5 is probably the best option because it doesn't actually sound like a shotgun particularly. It's actually quite warm. And maybe even the NTG3, I don't know.
Yeah, NTG3 is even a more warm, flat sounding mic.
Yeah.
The NTG5 is sort of a sweet spot between the brighter front, more forward sounding 41.6 and the very dark NTG3.
Yeah.
Which they sound totally different from each other. They only look the same.
Yeah.
That's about it. They don't sound anything the same. So.
No, they don't. Not at all.
No. The NTG3.5 is an interesting mic. It has good off-axis sound.
It's smooth.
In other words, you can work it off-axis and it won't sound real funky.
Yeah.
It'll just roll off the top end. Yeah. So that's what you call it, right? Smooth off-axis response. Which is great. The 41.6 does not.
No, it does not.
Smooth off. If you see its polar pattern, it looks pretty bizarre.
Jagged. Yeah. It looks like
it's all like a sawtooth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's exactly how it sounds. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You want to only be in front of a shotgun, and especially a 41.6.
Well, that was fun. Is it over?
The Pro Audio Suite, with thanks to TriBooth and Austrian Audio, recorded using Source Connect, edited by Andrew Peters and mixed by Voodoo Radio Imaging with tech support from George the Tech Whittam. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and join in the conversation on our Facebook group. To leave a comment, suggest a topic, or just say g'day, drop us a note at our website, theproaudiosuite.com.